Welcome, everybody, to the Sentinel Report. It is June 2nd of 2025. If you're watching us live today or listening to us, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman. We've got so much to share with you today, including an effort to abolish property taxes in South Dakota, the national biometric digital ID coming soon to a theater near you, and so much more. The Great Commission proceeds among the American Indians. Really, really exciting stuff. So stay with us for all that. Also, some big news. World War III possibly on the horizon, at least according to the German defense minister. And the World Health Organization has their pandemic agreement finally on the books. That and much more coming up. First, a word from the Word. This comes out of Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 through 15. The Bible reads, "Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Do everything without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation." Man, it could have been written yesterday, right? Talk about a warped and crooked generation that we find ourselves in, folks. But a lot of important stuff going on that we're going to share with you. So stay tuned for those guests as well. Now, the World Health Organization just adopted its pandemic agreement. Supposedly, it's going to make the world more equitable and safer, keep us safe from future pandemics. A lot of bad stuff in here, folks. Have been working on it for years. Now, of course, I should say right at the outset, we are not part of the WHO right now, but you know, and I know that the next time we get a deep state Democrat puppet in the White House, we'll be right back in and we will be subject to all this madness. There is so much wrong with it, folks. I can't even begin to describe it. The great Reggie Littlejohn says this will usher in a new era of globalist control masquerading as healthcare. As founder and president of Anti-Globalist International, I've identified 6 paramount threats posed by this new treaty. She says it represents a threat to national sovereignty by placing an unelected, unaccountable globalist organization at the helm of international health policy and implementation. She talks about the One Health approach that we've talked about here, where human health and animal health and planet health are all interconnected and one. The treaty also fast tracks approval for vaccines and other medicines, potentially short-circuiting important safety restrictions. It also creates a pathogen access and benefit sharing system where governments must share these deadly pathogens with the WHO. Folks, there's so much wrong with this. And that led the great Argentinian government under the leadership of Javier Milei to formally withdraw from the WHO as RFK Jr. was in the country visiting. The Argentinian leadership said they're going to reform the healthcare model, and they reiterated their decision to get out of this thing. The statement they put out is just brilliant from the foreign ministry. It says the WHO's prescriptions do not work because they are not based on science, but on political interests and bureaucratic structures that refuse to review their own mistakes. They called this WHO agency disastrous and talked about the terrible COVID-19 pandemic, trying to fight it with a caveman quarantine. Kudos to Argentina. Now, Montana has just passed a bill, HB 350, officially barring the enforcement of any policies or mandates coming out of the UN, the WHO, or the World Economic Forum. The law says, and I'm quoting, "These globalist entities have no jurisdiction in this state." The governor there signed it into law. And folks, this is really, really encouraging. We need more states to jump on this bandwagon. Now, Robert F. Kennedy, they just put out the MAHA report, put out by the MAHA Commission, chaired by HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and it gives a long overdue assessment of the pediatric health crisis we're dealing with in America. They identify 4 key things producing this massive chronic disease epidemic among our young people. Ultra-processed food. They say almost 70% of the calories children are eating today come from ultra-processed food. Environmental chemical exposure. It says children are exposed to a cumulative load of 40,000 chemicals, including pesticides, microplastics, and endocrine disruptors. Digital inactivity and chronic stress, right? They're sitting there playing computer, looking at screens for 9 hours a day. Folks, this is crazy. And then, of course, we have, last but certainly not least, the over-medicalization and hyper-vaccination of our kids. Talks about a recent and emerging crisis where children are being injected with massive amounts of concoctions. Folks, pay attention. This is critical, especially if you have kids in your life. Now, the new head of the NIH says NIH funding may have paid for the Wuhan research that created COVID, and the bureaucrats walked out. Check this out.
It's possible. There's a lot of controversy over this. I'm sure there's folks in the room who disagree with me. But it's possible that the pandemic was caused by research conducted by human beings. And it's also possible that the NIH partly sponsored that research. And if that's true, it's nice to have free speech. Welcome, you guys.
Can you imagine that, folks? What he said was true. Right? They walked out because they didn't like the truth. Now, the COVID vax has officially been removed from CDC recommendations for children and pregnant women. Baby steps. Check it out.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
And he goes on, folks. It's just great. Again, baby steps. We got to do more, but this is a good start. Now, we found out just recently from newly declassified intelligence documents that the Biden regime labeled Americans who opposed their COVID concoctions and their mask mandates as domestic violent extremists, folks. If you know what that means the FBI and government agents can then start creating assessments on these people. That means they can start investigations right afterwards. That's according to a former FBI agent, folks. We're very thankful that our new DNI, Director of National Intelligence, declassified these things because this is crazy, folks. They literally painted a big target on your back. If you didn't want a COVID vaccine, if you didn't want to put a diaper on your face, this is rogue government gone wild. Now, President Trump has been unable to sway some key Republicans from blue states to drop their opposition to a tax overhaul. And frankly, folks, this is an outrage, right? The SALT caucus. Basically, if you live in a high-tax Democrat state, you can write off your state and local taxes from your federal taxes. Another way of saying it is that good folks in Oklahoma and Florida and South Carolina are paying so that the wild politicians in California and Illinois and New York can spend all kinds of money. We're paying for it. That's enough, folks. It's enough. And I know the Republicans from these blue states are trying to help their people, but that's enough. Florida, Oklahoma should not be subsidizing California and New York. Trump is reportedly trying to bring the Florida blueprint of state immigration enforcement to the whole country. That's according to Florida's public safety czar and executive director of the State Board of Immigration Enforcement, Larry Keefe. We've got the video, but in the interest of time, we're not going to share it with you today. Also, the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, she's got a really powerful thing on X this week. It says the American Bar Association has lost its way. We do not believe it serves as a fair arbiter for judicial nominees. So the DOJ will no longer give the American Bar Association the access they've taken for granted. She's got a great letter where she complains about the pro-Democrat, pro-left-wing bias in the ratings for these judicial nominees. Now, going to Donald Trump again, he has put sanctions on the International Criminal Court prosecutor. And according to the news reports, this has actually stopped the work, if you want to call it that, at the International Criminal Court. The ICC chief prosecutor, his name is Mr. Khan, has actually lost access to his email accounts because now these are all sanctioned individuals. So really interesting what's going on here. We'll see how long this can last, but very, very encouraging. Now, last month, folks, was the 1700-year anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, which took place in May of 325. Big, big news. Now, CNN is, of course, whining that our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is having Christian prayer meetings every month at the Pentagon. Boo-hoo! They claim this is unconstitutional. And of course, it's not. Pete Hegseth said, "This is precisely where I need to be, exactly where we need to be as a nation at this moment, in prayer, on bended knee, recognizing the providence of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." He said, "This is something we plan to do on a monthly basis, on a voluntary basis, here in the auditorium. I hope you'll let those you work with know about it." Now, the former mocker of Christianity, Joe Rogan, is now reportedly attending a church. Pretty amazing. Very, very big news. Meanwhile, the Pope has reaffirmed traditional Catholic teachings on marriage and homosexuality. He says family is based on a stable union between a man and a woman. He also reiterated the church's historic teachings on homosexuality, that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. And he said abortion and euthanasia were evidence of today's throwaway culture. Now, Germany's defense chief is warning that NATO needs to be prepared for an attack by Russia within the next few years. General Carsten Brewer said Russia poses a very serious threat to NATO. He says he's never seen anything like this in his 40-year career. This comes after the Ukrainians launched a swarm of kamikaze drones, took out billions of dollars worth of Russian Air Force equipment. They say they knocked out 34% of its strategic cruise missile carriers at one of the main airfields deep within Russia. So, folks, this is getting heated. It's really, really significant. Now, I am going to be this weekend in Boise, Idaho, just outside of Boise. I'll be giving the keynote talk at the Homeschool Idaho Convention. If you're anywhere near Idaho, I hope we will see you there. It's going to be great fun. Whether you homeschool or not, whether you've got kids, grandkids, doesn't matter. This is going to be a great event. We hope to see you there. And before we go, folks, I want to encourage you to check out Classical Conversations. That's where I have my kids enrolled for home education. You can find them at classicalconversations.com. Also, you need to check out our friend Robert Bortons. He's the CEO of CC, and he does a great podcast called Refining Rhetoric. You can find it at refiningrhetoric.com. We hope you'll check it out. Stay with us. We'll be right back with some incredible guests.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Thanks for being with us, folks. You know that the UN is up to no good, right? And they're up to no good in so many different ways. And we've talked about it a lot on this program. One of the things that they do that really drives me nuts is exploit indigenous peoples, as they call them, to advance, first of all, paganism, and second of all, to advance tyranny. They've got a special rapporteur on the rights of indigenous people. They've got an international agreement purporting to protect the rights of indigenous people. And I can kind of summarize it for you. Basically, hey, hand over all your land, all your freedom, all your money, and we'll take good care of the Indians, right? That's what they do. It just is what they do. And all over the world, they use this now as a pretext to wage war on Christianity, Western civilization. We see it in Australia. We see it in South America. We see it here in the United States, where the UN's special rapporteur on indigenous people said we need to give back all of the land that Indians might have ever used, including, by the way, Mount Rushmore. Joining us today is a very special guest. He's a friend of the show. He does wonderful work. He's a Christian missionary, and he has a heart for reaching the native peoples of the Americas, in particular in the Dakotas area of the country. And he does phenomenal work. It's just amazing to see what God is doing among the native tribes here in America, thanks to the work of people like Matthew and other wonderful missionaries taking the gospel to people who have not heard it. Matthew, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thank you, brother. Appreciate your breadth and depth and addressing the United Nations all the way down to what's going on in America, indigenous peoples. What do we call them? I just want to say, put this out there. There's a video out there by Russell Means, and he was really the United Nations main pawn addressing, do we call them Native American or American Indian? And so you can go look that up. And he actually said that before the United Nations, they preferred the term American Indian. So
American Indian. Okay, then American Indian we shall use. So Matthew, before we get into the specifics of ministering to people whose traditional religious views involve paganism and things like that. Talk a little bit about the UN. I mean, we saw like a couple of years ago, they walked up to the top of Mount Sinai with this new 10 commandments. They flew in some, pagan American Indians with the headdresses to kind of represent, I guess, indigenous spirituality, they called it. And it seems to me, I'd love your take on this, that there is like a real push to kind of repaganize not just the Western world, but the whole world as like some sort of retribution for the real and alleged evils of European colonialism and all the rest of it. What do you see the UN doing here on this front?
Yeah, so the United Nations has a permanent Indigenous forum. They meet once a year at the United Nations, and that's based in New York. And it's so ironic. I love what you're saying, because it's, you're probably familiar with Mark Musser's book on the Nazis and how they thought that Christianity and Jewish people and capitalism were the source of all the problems. And it was just, I know there's a lot of different facets of that, but right, it's the same thing. It's Nazism, it's communism, etc., cultural Marxism, just to pit one group against another. And that just so happens to be a Christocentric European culture. It just happened that the Europeans happened to be very Christian and establish America. And but we were, I would say, when you go back to Europe, even, we were no different. Ran around naked, long hair, and sacrificed stuff to false gods.
Yep.
And it just so happens that Christianity has reigned supreme. And this is really ironic too, is that United Nations says this, and this is going to smack everyone in the face, just to give you some context here. United Nations has this verse from the Bible saying that the swords are going to be beaten into plowshares, that God's going to cause wars to cease. Well, literally, the only reason that the 570 federally recognized tribes in America are not fighting today is because of Christian America. Literally, United States, for all the supposed evils and ills against indigenous peoples, American Indian peoples, they literally brought peace to every tribe that had warred at one point or another.
Yeah. And Matthew, I think something you just said right now really bears repeating and explaining, because you're right. It's such an important tool of attack by these evildoers, the pagans, the people who want to destroy Christianity and the church and the Bible. It's a European religion, it's a white supremacist religion. And that's total baloney, right? I lived many years in Scandinavia, and the Scandinavians were some of the last Europeans to come to Christ. And just like you said, they were not only running around naked and sacrificing things, they were sacrificing children to these demons, and they were raping and pillaging. And it wasn't until the Bible, the gospel, arrived in Scandinavia that these uncivilized Vikings and things became civilized and became a nice, harmonious, peaceful, secure society with wealth and liberty. And they stopped, raiding and conquering neighboring villages and hauling off their women. And of course, Christianity came out of the Middle East and oppressed, I guess, the peoples of Europe. I mean, when you just spend 2 seconds thinking about this narrative, it so self-evidently falls apart. Matthew, I want to turn to the Great Commission for a moment. We often think of the Great Commission as like, well, we got to send missionaries to Africa or to Asia or India. And I think all those things are important. But we oftentimes, I think American Christians forget that we have quite a few nations right here within our nation that do not know the Lord yet. Quite a lot of people that do not know the Lord. And so you're ministering to them. And I believe that's an important part of the Great Commission. And I believe God is already doing great things among the American Indians, and he's going to do even greater things. Talk to us about what you're seeing on that front and the opposition that you're facing from not just powers and principalities, but actual civil authorities in some cases.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Alex. So there's 570 American Indian tribes that are recognized by the federal government. We're talking, and then we have Hawaiian, we have American Samoan, we have Inuit, Aleut up there in Alaska. And a lot of people don't know this. There's a very rich history of evangelism and conversion amongst American Indians. And so I give a presentation, and I will say this. I'm 30 years old. I have spent my whole adult life, from the time I was 17 to now, trying to figure out what went wrong and how do we reach all these tribes. And so I started out with a few tribes, and now I've figured out what the globalists are doing. I got their narrative down. I know who their main proponents and propagandists are, and I've got it down to a T. And so it's come with lots of opposition. But I'll just say this: if we go back in history in America, we have John Eliot, the first Bible that was printed in America ever. It wasn't an English Bible; it was Algonquian. And he tells these stories of people that are, you can go and read books on archive.org for free about how these people are leaving pagan worship and embracing Christ, and that the American settlers had to save people from them. Samson Occam, 1700s, this evangelist, this first printed literature by any American Indian in the whole entire country. And it's a sermon telling his fellow people to repent. And then there's in the early 1800s, before what's been revised as quote unquote the Trail of Tears, there were way different views on that, mainly arising from protection and the Christian needs of people like the Cherokee. And so the Brainerd Journal, people can go look this up. Archive.org is the first mission to the Cherokees, and just these beautiful, beautiful stories and testimonies of these Indians saying, we've lived in darkness for so long, and now we have Christ. So, but today, basically, it's just a few, like probably 5 authors that lived during that transition period. And so, because they don't have a Quran or they don't have a Bhagavad Gita, it's something that we can just adamantly oppose just at face value. I had to create, and this will be published soon, I had to create their own authors, American Indian authors, in their own words, saying what they believe in the contradictions, and that compared to the supremacy of Christ. And it just, I can't believe where I am today with what I knew at the beginning and what I've seen today. So that's a bit about the religious aspect of it. Now, the opposition you want me to address is, so from the top down, from the United Nations, this goes back to the early 60s with the American Indian, or the 60s with the American Indian movement, and they took over Alcatraz in California. And I can't say a lot. There's a group of people that I'm working with at a very well-known institution, and also some people that are former 3-letter agency groups. And I understand that they can be bad, but these are people from years and years ago, and specific plans and things that haven't been shared before, where we're talking about foreign involvement to affect the Indian tribes. And so that started in the 60s with the American Indian movement, and now today it's called Indian Collective. And yes, it's a spiritual battle. I've experienced that in many ways. Sharing the gospel is, when you're really sharing it, brings a lot of persecution, a lot of joy. But yeah, we faced lawfare and things like that. But I probably don't have a lot of time to get into all of that.
Yeah, well, we've had you on before to talk about some of that, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to do this, despite the opposition, despite the persecution that it does bring. We're almost out of time, but I've got to show you this. Producer, if you could pull up number 11 for us. This just happened last week. King Charles III, who is, by the way, the King of Canada, the Sovereign of Canada, also the King of the United Kingdom. He opened up the Canadian Parliament with this speech that is, because I think a lot of people are watching this, Matthew, they're like, how is that relevant to me? Folks, this agenda is going to hit home. If it doesn't soon, I'll be very surprised. But for our friends up in the north, it's already there. I want to show this little clip of the King of Canada, King Charles III, opening the Parliament there with some incredible words. The very first things out of his mouth, folks, show you where this agenda is going. So let's roll that clip.
I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and the Anishinaabe people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed.
Yeah. So, folks, I mean, obviously this was like a pushback, I guess, against Trump, talking about Canada. But think about what he's saying here, folks. He just said that this land is unceded land from the Algonquin, Anishinaabe people. Matthew, what does that mean for the folks of Canada? Are they occupiers? Are they colonizers? Should they be removed by force?
Well, I think it's really ironic because, like, you had the Oneida and the Tuscarora and the Mohican fight on the side of the Americans. And each tribe would basically pick a nation. If you had some feud with another tribe, you would just go pick the country that was fighting the other tribe. And so it's total hypocrisy because there are tribes that fought with the British, and it's really silly when you get down to it because you had French, Spanish, British, American control. But anyway, I'm just laughing at it.
Yeah, it's amazing though. I mean, here he is basically arguing that Canada is illegitimate as a nation because you're sitting on occupied land that was never ceded by this Indian tribe. Um, Folks, this is what the UN, by the way, is arguing. They actually specifically said we need to give back in the agreement every bit of land that was ever used, walked on, by whatever, by any Indigenous person needs to be returned. And they made clear that actually includes Mount Rushmore. Matthew, I'm so grateful for your work. I'm so grateful for what you are doing for the Great Commission. You do some excellent stuff. How can people follow you on social media? How can people keep up with your excellent work?
Yeah, appreciate the exposure, Alex, and all your support. So Matthew with 2 T's, Monfore on socials, and then Jesus is King mission. And like Alex and I were talking, I just had a loss in my family recently. So we spent a lot of time taking care of that person. And so I'm going to be producing a lot more material here upcoming. So thank you.
We're thankful to you, Matthew. I can't wait to have you back to talk about all the great stuff you're doing. So thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. God bless you and keep up the great work.
You too, brother. Keep going.
Thank
Only
you,
one
sir.
life will soon be passed.
Amen. 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 All right, folks, stay with us and do go check out Matthew on social media, folks. He's really doing some great work. He just lost his father, and I had the opportunity to meet his father. Great man, but certainly required a lot of care. So look for great things from Matthew now that he's got a little bit more time to spend on these critical initiatives. We'll be right back here on the Sentinel Report in just a moment.
In 1776, a nation was born, forged in the crucible of revolution. Brave men and women stood together fighting for freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile. For free activation, use promo code Newman.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, if you pay much attention to politics, you've probably noticed that politicians talk a good game when they're out on the campaign trail, when they do town halls. They're super conservative. They're going to lower your taxes, hold the bureaucracy accountable. And then they get to Washington, then they get to Tallahassee, then they get to Austin, and they stick a big fat knife right in your back. Well, there's a tool that has been around for a while, but it's getting new legs right now. That's going to help you as a voter, you as a citizen, you as an activist, have a better sense of what your elected representatives are actually doing. They won't be able to hide from their records. It's called the Freedom Index. And of course, I'm senior editor at The New American. You can find us at thenewamerican.com. And we've been doing this for a long time. But our friend Lisa von Geldern, she is the director of training and events for the John Birch Society. She is now putting together training programs and events for folks across the country on how to use this tool effectively to get better representation in Congress or in the state legislature. Lisa, welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Alex. It's great to see you.
You as well.
The scorecards come out of an old program we had in the past called the TRIM, and TRIM is tax relief immediately. And it went away for a little while, but it was used very, very effectively to inform citizens about their legislators' record. And we were able to change congressional seats using the scorecard and educating the voters. And we're now doing a renewed push. We're educating ourselves right now on how best and where best to launch this program. But we will be revitalizing it, and anybody can go and find their legislators' scores at thefreedomindex.org. It's a nationwide scorecard. We have a history of the votes of congressmen and senators, and we're also doing state scorecards now. The one that most interests me when I try to teach people about the value of the scorecards is the legislative session where Lindsey Graham got an 11% constitutional vote and Bernie Sanders scored a 32%.
Oof.
That's my favorite example of why people need to stop looking at that D and R and just pulling the lever. They need to pay attention to what the person's doing in Congress, how they're voting, the cost to them. And the other thing about these scorecards is they attach a financial cost to many of the bills, so you can see what's been voted on and how it's affecting you.
Wow, amazing. And to your point, actually, Lisa, when I was in college, we used the Freedom Index to remove a very liberal Republican. I mean, he talked so conservative, you would have thought he was, Ron Paul, constitutionalist. But, then he would get to Washington and he'd vote for all the unconstitutional programs. So we went to his town hall meetings. We bought hundreds of copies of the thing, handed it out to everybody walking in. We'd sit strategically around the room and then ask questions. Oh, Congressman, you voted for foreign aid to Pakistan. Would you be kind enough to explain to us where in the Constitution you find authority to send foreign aid to Pakistan? Next question, please. And we replaced him in the primary. We got a constitutionalist who actually became the speaker at the next national JBS dinner. It was a fun story. And folks, you can do that in your community as well. It's a really valuable tool. And now with the state legislators being ranked as well, really valuable. Lisa, you're in Arizona. One of the best performers in the House of Representatives for a long time has been Congressman Andy Biggs. He's had a very constitutional voting record on the Freedom Index, and he is now running for governor in your state, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. We're very excited about Andy Biggs' race. There's a few other people running, but Andy is by far the favorite, especially among the grassroots. And he has a great record here. He was in the legislature here earlier, and he protected us from every single COS or term limits bill that came down the pike. He wrote a book called The Con of the Con. So he understands how critical it is to protect the Constitution from people who want to take easy methods to remedy. And it's not really an easy method, but it's a very messy and dangerous method of trying to remedy the ills in Congress.
Yep. And he has been firm on the side of liberty all along. He actually chaired the House Freedom Caucus. Really good guy. We did a great interview with him over at the New American, folks. So go check it out. You'll see he is the real deal. So if you live in Arizona, something to think about. Lisa, you also have a huge event coming up here very soon that you are organizing. I mean, not you personally, but you're the point person for it. And that is the JBS Leadership Summit coming up just outside Philadelphia in September. Yours truly will be speaking there, folks. I hope to see you there. Also, the great General Michael Flynn and also Catherine Austin Fitts. Tell us a little bit about the program, Lisa.
So Catherine Austin Fitts is going to be speaking about digital IDs and Bitcoin and the dangers therein. Alex, we're going to have you speaking on the UN and on children and what's happening in education and the dangers of government intervention in the education system. As we all know, as we can all see, my husband was in shock and awe this weekend at the number of old movie stars whose kids are now LGBTQ. So that's, something that we have to be aware of. And then General Flynn is going to give us a lay of the land and what's going on in DC and what we have to look forward to. I hope, I'm concerned about what's going on there, but I hope that he'll have some good news for us. He spoke last year for us, and he almost sounded like a Bircher. He said, we need to educate our neighbors and our friends. We need to get out there and talk to people. And that's what JBS chapters are all about, is educating the people in their local community and connecting with local influencers so that people understand what's going on and what the votes in Congress mean and how to affect change in their local government.
Yep.
As you and I both know, the states are what created the federal government, not the other way around. We should be in control of them. They shouldn't be our master.
Yep. And folks, if you can get out to the Leadership Summit, it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, September, just outside of Philadelphia. Great speakers, great people. You get some great training on how to do this. Of course, the John Birch Society, named after the great Captain John Birch, missionary to China, who was then murdered by the Chinese communists after serving in our forces during World War II. Really incredible work you guys are doing.
Alex, the reason we placed it in Pennsylvania is because in the following year is our semi-sesquicentennial. And I wanted to celebrate our history. I really believe that the committees of correspondence, John Birch is the great-grandchild of, the John Birch Society is the great-grandchild of the committees of correspondence. And so we're planning on having some tours of some of the historic sites on Friday before the conference. So anybody who does come in from out of town will get information on signing up for some tours of historic sites Friday and possibly Sunday to sandwich. The hotel's been very generous. We get a discounted rate for 3 days before and after the event for anyone who wants to come in and check out the historic area.
Great. And Lisa, how do people get tickets? How do people find out more?
Go to jbs.org/25 and or you can look for the leadership conference little blip on the right up there, that little red line up there at the top of our webpage. That's on all the pages. You go click on it, and then you can get details down below and buy tickets. And you can find out about how to sign up at the hotel. The hotel has given us an incredible rate. I visited recently. It's beautiful. The service is beautiful. We're going to get really well taken care of. It's going to be a wonderful event.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for joining us. Really, really a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you in Philadelphia in just a few months. So thanks for all you're doing, and God bless you.
Thanks, Alex. God bless you too.
All righty, folks, stay with us. We're going to be right back here in just a moment with the great Twila Braise with an update on the real IDs that the government wants you to carry, and so much more. Stay tuned.
Are you concerned about your child's education? Have you considered looking into alternatives to public school but don't know where to start? Greater Than I Ministries will give you the tools you need with a free Home Educators Kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Biblical Worldview video series. Available on DVD or streamed to your home or device, this series will thoroughly equip you and your family with the truth you need about the battle of ideas being waged against our families and our nation. And our free Home Educators Kit will provide you with links directly connecting you with all the resources you need if you're considering rescuing your children from the public indoctrination schools. Go to gtimin.com and click the green banner at the top to receive your free Home Educators Kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Worldview video series. Again, that's gtimin.com and click the green banner at the top. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman. Thanks for staying with us, folks. We have a guest who comes on every few months to break down some really important issues. What she has to share is so important that we've just, put her on the regular schedule because she's just constantly at the tip of the spear on these really, really critical stories and ways that we can practically push back. Now, I wouldn't have expected this, to be honest, going into the election and even early on in the administration, but people within the administration are really pushing hard on these real IDs. They want us to all have these federally standardized ID programs. I mean, it's the beginning of a national ID with all that goes with that. And Twila Braise, our guest, she's the president and co-founder of the Citizens Council for Health Freedom powerhouse group dedicated to free markets in healthcare, privacy, patient rights. Just really appreciate what you guys do. Twila, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Alex. I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. Twila, tell us about this. We know the Secretary of Homeland Security, the supposedly conservative former governor of South Dakota, is really pushing hard. Go get your real IDs. If you don't, we might not even let you on an airplane, and this is for security. What's the latest on this thing?
Okay, well, that was such a lie. That was April 11th, and she said, if you come on May 7th to the airport without a real ID, you will not be able to travel. And it has never been that way. There are 16 different identification documents that are available, and her own department has a 2-year phase-in that is really focused on the airport to try and prevent delays and disruptions and all sorts of things. So she was just trying to use fear to force people to, submit to this national ID system. And so where we're at right now is that the airports are letting people through just as if you had I mean, it probably depends on the airport. But if you lose or somebody steals your ID at any time or even in the future with a real ID or a passport, there is an entire process to get you through that airport without an ID. And so that is what's taking place. Kristi Noem, on the day before May 7th, basically confessed to Congress that people would be able to fly. They'd make sure that they met their travel itinerary, but there'd be a few extra steps. And so if you don't have a real ID or a passport card or one of these other identification documents, you will get to travel. You just should be there a little early.
Yep. And then you get to be groped and you get to go to the naked body scanner and you can have them do their little rubber gloves and exciting. It's just terrible. Twila, I want to talk about the opposition here too, because you guys are doing some really good stuff. You got some billboards up now. You've written a letter now to the president and also to Kristi Noem and all 50 state AGs asking them to end this thing. And we even have some Democrat states. I hate to agree with the Democrat state, but you even have some Democrat states now pushing back on this. They want to repeal their participation in the Real ID. Talk to us about the growing opposition to this thing and whether you think it'll succeed.
Well, I think it has to succeed if we want to be free. And if we don't want to be part of the global identification network that, WEF and others want to build. And so at the state level, really led, I think, primarily by Libby. Libby, I can't believe I can't remember her last name. Anyway, she is a representative in the state of Maine. She is Laurel Libby, and she is a Republican, but she made sure that she got all of her co-authors to be Democrats. And so there were other co-authors, other potential co-authors that were Republicans. And she said, no, I just want to have the Democrats. And it's a Democrat state. So that bill has had a hearing and it's gone into study committee, which is their way of trying to get rid of it. But in the meantime, there are other states around the nation and they are passing resolutions or they are introducing, I don't know that they've passed them. They've introduced resolutions and they've introduced bills to either require that everybody can have a non-real ID or to say that we are going to extract ourselves from the Real ID program. So that's what's happening at the state level. There's about 8 of those states, which is just great. And we are encouraging more states to do so. And I think more states will do so. And then at the individual level, we are encouraging people, if they have a real ID, if they have a star on their card, we are encouraging them to turn it in and get a standard state driver's license. If you understand where they want to go with this, you understand that they're moving towards a digital, biometric controlled national ID. The DMVs testified before Congress on December 5th, 2023, and they said we plan to digitize it, put it on the phone, and have remote access to it. So it makes it really easy. We can just, switch it anytime, someone needs it switched. But really what that means is we're setting up a system across this country that could be a Chinese-like social credit system where they would know every time you would pull that out, it would ping the DMV. And then if the DMV wanted access to all of that data, they simply change the rules because all of the states have conformed to the federal rules and have agreed that whatever the federal government says, they will do, which is why we want the states to extract themselves from this program. But in the meantime, as I said, individuals can thwart where the administration wants to go, where the leftists want to go, where the globalists want to go. They can thwart this entire thing by refusing the Real ID. And if they're afraid that they won't be able to fly, just get a passport, get a passport card. They are not the same at all. The Real ID is going to be an internal passport, which will control and track what you do, every transaction, all the travel, everything. This is not going to stop at commercial airlines because the law says it can be expanded ad infinitum. According to whoever the secretary is. So they could decide that you have to have it to buy a gun. You have to have it to open a bank account. You have to have it to get an education. You have to have it to get medical care, anything that they want to.
You have to have it to use your central bank digital currencies and buy and sell. And coming soon to it. That's where they're going with this, folks. That's where they're going with this. All you got to do is read their documents. You'll see this is a global program here. Very, very scary. Twila, I'm thankful for the efforts you guys are undertaking here. I want to switch gears. We have so little time and there's so much to discuss with you. Minnesota which is one of the states, by the way, states resisting the Real ID. So we're thankful for the efforts there to stop this thing. But they also are coming after, or they did come after, religious freedom. They tried to ban the religious exemption for the MMR shot after the measles outbreak that we're all supposed to be hiding under our beds to combat. Talk to us about this legislative win.
Yes, well, actually, they want to get rid of the conscientious objection as well. So every objection that there was, except a medical exemption. And we did a Facebook Live post. We did all sorts of things to get the public aware. We contacted other organizations and said, put this out, contact the legislature, stop this, because this was just going to be the beginning. If they had gotten this would have set a precedent, and they would have just chipped away at every vaccine that there was. Minnesota has a conscientious objection for all vaccinations, which means you don't even have to have a reason except I don't want to in order to not take a vaccine. And so this was the Democrats' plan to put the camel's nose under the tent and rip away all parental and individual rights over vaccinations. And we are very pleased to say that did not happen.
And I am very pleased as well. Not that I would ever live in Minnesota, but I was just there. I gave the keynote talk at the state homeschool convention, and there was a lot of concern about this. I mean, people are genuinely concerned about this. So thank you, Twila, for that update. In the last couple minutes before we let you go, the executive order that Trump has signed on drug costs. Give us your take.
So to me, it looks more like price controls. To me, it doesn't really attack the real issue that's going on here. And the real issue are all the third-party payers and third-party controllers in the middle of this whole kit and caboodle called pharmaceuticals. Nobody knows the price of anything. The pharmaceutical companies here know that they can charge us whatever, but they can't do that to other countries because they have socialized medicine. But there is a different way of doing this rather than the government, cracking down with price controls, because price controls always lead to limited supply. And so that is, I don't think that this is the answer. I think it has, good media feels, public feels like, yes, we're going to finally do something with the prices of medications. But, what people really want is access. And there's two ways out of access. One, they just don't create them. They don't manufacture them. The other is that you're priced out of access. So we really have to get the pharmaceutical industry back to a real free market, free market, which means that all those third-party players are out of the picture. Cash is the way it happens, and everything is priced to cash. But not only that, we have to stop this FDA process of it costs $2 billion in 10 years to get even one medication over the FDA endpoint. And so, we really have to let people, be creative and innovative and have a very short period of time. But they have to be liable for every medication that they make. They have to have full liability. So no protection from the government. And I think that would change a lot of things, and it would bring the prices down. Yeah. And before I just end talking, because I know we're at the end here, I just want to let all your people know that when it comes to Real ID, we have a special page called refuserealid.org, refuserealid.org. And we have all sorts of things to help you deal with the Real ID issue, including changing over to a standard state driver's license.
Yeah. Well, Twila, really appreciate all of your work. It's almost like going back to a free market might actually solve a lot of these problems for us.
It just might. It just might.
It's truly amazing. So I agree with you 100%, right? We need to go back to the market. We need to get the government out. And if you want to make drugs, you got to be liable for them. Pretty simple, right? Basic free market stuff. Twila, your website, the website of the Citizens Council for Health Freedom is cchfreedom.org, cchfreedom.org. Folks, you need to get there. Is a lot of good information. Twila, thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to our next visit.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, stay with us. We're going to be right back here on the Sentinel Report with more.
Are you worried about spike proteins and how they may impact your health? Are you looking for help? The Wellness Company has an answer in the form of our clean, pure, all-natural spike formula developed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. The Wellness Company's spike formula includes the incredible nattokinase, dandelion root, black sativa extract, green tea, and iris sea moss. Even better, the Spike formula by the Wellness Company is vegan, gluten-free, and made right here in the US, so you know that you can trust and rely on it if you're concerned about spike proteins. Buying American-made, natural ingredients of this quality separately will cost you over $100. Our Spike formula is only $65.99. Get Spike formula today by going to twc.health. Sentinel Report users use the code Newman at checkout for an additional discount. Go to twc.health, promo code Newman, and get peace of mind if you are concerned about spike proteins.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, one of the really encouraging things that has now entered the national discussion is this move to abolish property taxes. Our governor here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, has been talking about it. In fact, I was at a meeting just last week with him where he was signing the gold and silver bill into law, making gold and silver currency. And one of the things he talked about was we've got to get rid of property taxes. In South Dakota, there's a very serious effort to accomplish this as well. And it's led by our good friends and our guests, Mike and Julie Mueller, Frye-Mueller. Welcome to the program, guys. Really appreciate you joining us. Julie, I want to start with you. You served as a state senator for 4 years in South Dakota, and a lot of that time you served under Governor Kristi Noem. Our last guest was just talking to us about the Real ID and how dangerous that was, and Kristi Noem seems to be the point person pushing this. But that, I don't know, it's hard to process that because the media told us she's super conservative and protected everybody in South Dakota from the COVID tyranny. You were there. What was it like serving under Kristi Noem, Governor Kristi Noem?
Well, in all honesty, I'm not for Real ID. I brought bills even when Dugard was there and when Kristi was there, and they fought my attempts at trying to stop Real ID. Even before, we were the first state that signed on to it. Oh my Lord, they were so proud of that, and it was just stupid. But I keep saying, Mike and I and my sister had did up graphs to show all kinds of things and why this is a negative. But to me, coming back down to today's date, this is part of the deep state. It's part of having everything that makes us us, all of our private documentation into one thing, and our country does not even hold the data.
Amen.
Is that your understanding?
Yeah, it is. Yep. And I agree with you 100%. This is a deep state plot. It absolutely is. And I cannot figure out why it's being pushed right now under the Trump administration with Kristi Noem as the point person. It's very unfortunate. But that's not why I brought you guys on the show. I really want to talk about property.
Let me interrupt you.
Go ahead,
Alex,
Julie.
I was going to interrupt you. But I don't think Kristi understands what she's doing. I just don't. If you really looked into it and if you were conservative, you would be 1000% opposed to this.
Yep.
It's against our rights. I mean, it is absolutely wrong to do.
Yeah. And it's unconstitutional. The federal government has no power to do this. It's just baffling. Julie and Mike, I want to talk to you guys about some really important stuff you're doing in South Dakota right now. And we'll see who gets to the finish line first. We here in Florida or you guys in South Dakota. But the effort to abolish property taxes. Give us the elevator pitch. Why would we want to abolish property taxes when it's so important to fund our local schools?
Well, we started this in April of 24. Actually, I started working with the Legislative Research Council when I was still in the Senate. I was in the House 4 years prior to that. But we see too many people in our area that are losing their homes, have to sell their homes because of government, being able to take their homes because it's tied to property taxes. And Mike and I and Matt Smith from Hermosa started doing these forums, and some of the benefits that even come out of it. It's a plan to replace all property tax revenue with a transaction tax. And I hate to use the word tax, but we would be getting rid of the biggest, worst tax of all in our state if we did this transaction tax. And it's only anything $15 or more. It would be $1.50 at the end of your receipt. And anything less than $15 is 10% of the cost. So if you're somebody that has to drink a coffee every day, it would be 50 cents at the end. And then this totally detaches government from being able to take our homes totally. And young people can maybe qualify to get homes because they can't, because with the the actual mortgage and the property taxes and the insurance that they pay, they can't qualify to get a loan. But Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And this is, people overlook this point. It's fully funding everything that's funded right now. $1.8 billion in South Dakota is the property tax revenue from 2024. This transaction fee would accumulate that much money and fully fund schools, counties, cities, fire departments, water districts. All of the 13 entities that draw from property taxes right now are still fully funded. It's just coming out of a different pot in a different manner.
Yep. And what a joy that would be to finally be able to own your own land, own your own house, not have to worry about running perpetually on the hamster wheel to pay your taxes so that you can keep your land. Mike, Julie, realistically, what are the prospects of this happening in the near to medium term? I mean, does this look like something that would be feasible over the next few years, maybe?
Yeah.
Right now, our goal is to have it no later than the November 2026 general election ballot.
Wow.
We would acquire the signatures for this. Once this petition is perfected, gone through the Secretary of State, Attorney General's hands, gets out to the people, we will accumulate signatures, and we hope to have enough signatures amassed by the start of the legislative session, because at that point, we're going to have a Senate joint resolution and a House joint resolution to mirror this. And then they'll have pressure, because it's an election year, to move along and say, you want to handle this, or you want the people to handle this, and get it on the ballot one way or another.
We are coming at it the three ways, like Mike said, with the Senate joint resolution and the House joint resolution and a citizen vote. Yep. Because I don't trust the legislature. Actually, this year's legislature is way better than it's been in the past. When I was in, it was not good, and you know about that, Alex. But yeah, this is the only way to free us, and then they can't take our homes at all. So
we have met with both our county, second largest county in the state, county treasurer and county auditor. They are amenable to this, that they could make it work. We have also met with our state treasurer and the state auditor's office, and they say this can be managed and handled through the state. So that the money goes to the state and is redistributed back to the counties. After budgets are approved by each of those political subdivisions, they get their allocation from the state treasury. And it's dedicated funds. It's not something they could sweep into the general fund and use it as play money for other fund projects. This has to be dedicated to property tax use as it is now.
We're making sure that's in all of the wording. And what we want other people to do, we don't want you to move to South Dakota. We want other states to take our idea and use it themselves, because we don't want, it's gotten way too big. And as you talked about Christy and the COVID thing, she brought bills actually to give governmental agencies the authority to take, make things to us. So I just had to get that in because you did ask me about that. And yes, she's probably, I heard that somebody's going to be.
I heard that from several other legislators. Hey, it was us who made sure she couldn't impose the COVID tyranny on us. It wasn't the governor. So glad we got that on the record too. This is huge. We feel the same way in Florida, right? Do this in your own state. Stop coming to ours. Everybody now wears like the Don't New York My Florida shirts and the bumper stickers. So we got plenty of people in Florida. Thank you very much. Plenty of people in South Dakota. But this is something that is, I think, a template for the whole nation. Mike, Julie, before we let you go, is there a website, a social media place, anywhere where people can follow your efforts and learn more?
Yes, it's Abolish Property Taxes SD.com. There it is.
You've got it up.
Oh, you've got it up right there.
Abolish Property Taxes SD.com. Folks, take this, take it to your state legislators, and get it done in your state. Final thoughts, guys, before we let you go.
And it's not it's Abolish Property Taxes SD, but they put in just because.
Final thoughts are, we are presenting July 17th to the Summer Study Committee that's been formed to try and solve the property tax issue in South Dakota. We will present to them, and hopefully this will be the kingpin issue that they'll pick up on and not just try and tweak it, but eliminate it.
Amen. Wouldn't that be a great blessing? South Dakota leading the way. Mike, Julie, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you for what you're doing. Please keep us updated. We'll get you back as there are more developments. But again, we really appreciate it. Keep up the great work in South Dakota.
Thank you for all you do.
It's teamwork. And thank you, Alex.
Absolutely. God bless you both. God bless South Dakota. We'll catch up with you soon. Folks, that is all we have time for today on the Sentinel Report. But I want to thank you for tuning in, and I want to encourage you to share this out with others. The fake media is dying. They're lying. But we have the power to turn it around just by educating our fellow citizens. And one way you can do that is take the link to this, or if you're hearing us on the radio, get to libertysentinel.org. You can find it in the archives. If you're watching us on TV, again, libertysentinel.org. Get this information out to other people. We must expose these evildoers. We must continue to stand for what is right. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, God bless you all.